you check the children?
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hola, Fright fans! Welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Jaime and Fuego, and very excited to be catching you up on all kinds of fright stuff that is in theaters right now, all of the genre, excuse me, of which there is an abundance, believe it or not, and yet the theaters are struggling, and, well, with a movie like Opus that just recently hit theaters, I can kind of see why, because of all of the things that I have watched in the last few weeks, this latest from A24, and anybody who's watched this channel for a number of years, you know, Cecil teases me constantly about my affinity for A24, and how, you know, it's very, abstract a lot of the time, very, well, it veers into the pretentiousness and whatever, so I must say, the way people view A24, and I feel like it's kind of a misconception a lot of the time, is unfortunately what Opus embodies. Opus is really bad. It's in contention for the worst films that I've seen this year, unfortunately. And so I guess that gives my overall thoughts right off the bat. Man, it just doesn't feel right to just really launch into it like that. But so this stars, I'm trying to remember her name, Ayo Edibiri, and so I've always liked her, man. I mean, and she does more comedic stuff, though. You know, the Bear is definitely not really a comedy, even though it gets nominated in that category constantly. But I mean, Bottoms, and she's done like voice work for. She was April O'Neil in that new Ninja Turtles movie. I mean, she's always. I think she did some SNL work for a while. I don't watch SNL, but I believe she was a part of it for a bit, or maybe still is. But in any event, so you know, I was really fun in so many things that I've seen her in, but this role just, I don't know if it was like miscasting or just her trying to, excuse me, play it a little straighter than I feel like because the tone is all over the place in this movie. Like, it tries to be funny, and then it tries to be more graphic and serious, and the film itself, similar to Companion, okay, where there's things that the film itself tries to mask and keep secretive about and keep the audience guessing, you know, or just keep them completely in the dark. And yet the marketing campaign, where it's like, you know, basically being very evident about the fact that this is a cult movie, I mean, the marketing leaves no mystery of any kind, and so the film starts out with a interesting little like opening credits montage of these characters like rocking out, not characters in the movie, just random concert goers, you know, and we do see a nice multi-gendered and ethnic myriad of peeps, just showing that music has that transcendence and an effect on people of all walks of life. And this character in the movie, who was played by John Malkovich, is supposed to be that sort of character. I'm trying to remember, Mazzetti or Moretti, or I believe it's Moretti. I just want to double check. Yeah, Alfred Moretti. So Alfred Moretti, as played by John Malkovich in this flick, is supposed to be this pop star from, I'm guessing, probably got his start in the 80s, but really reached his zenith in the 90s. You know, like 20 plus number ones and all this different stuff, and yet they never specify the number ones. And I'm like, what? Like number one on like, you know, the dance, you know, part of the billboards or whatever. They don't really specify, which is probably better because of the fact that the lore that this movie constructs, you essentially have, he's supposed to be like bigger than Michael Jackson, and he's got very Elton John sort of stylistic like audaciousness, but and presumed sexual fluidity, and yet sings a lot about women. It's, I mean, so a very daring, very edgy, but also somebody who's appealing to pretty much every demographic you can think of, you know, straight, queer, you know, male, female, non-binary, you know, whatever. I mean, like all across the board, you know, racially, just like somebody who transcends every sort of demographic and, you know, sort of social set and everything. And yet this artist has been in hiding for like a couple decades, and yet suddenly reemerges. And Ayo's character works at a, it's it's kind of like a Rolling Stone, a spin sort of place, and her boss are both invited to this secret listening party at this compound that this Moretti artist, played by Malkovich, has been living at with a shiz ton of his followers and worshippers, essentially. And you also have a few subsidiary characters there. Juliette Lewis, for instance, is one of them, and yet underdeveloped, across the board, so many of these characters. And my biggest issue with this, especially from a writing standpoint, I already mentioned the fact that it's tonally all over the place, and they're trying to manufacture this backstory for this character, and they try to validate it with, you've got like Wolf Blitzer or whatever from CNN, you've got Bill Burr like podcasting talking about this character. So I guess that's one of the big things to do in a film when you have a fictional character that is supposed to be like supremely prominent and everything. You bring on actual people to try to like validate, and you're just like, oh yeah, they're real. Look at the real life people in our real world that are talking them up, and so it makes it feel more like validated, more legitimate, I suppose. But I guess I'll get to the music later on. But the biggest thing for me is that it is very obviously a cult, and it's so cliched in so many of the beats that we get. The only bit that is really interesting is, I believe it's in the third act, there is a puppet show that the characters go to because they start encountering issues, because it's all like, there's an influencer, there's a podcaster, there's obviously Io and her editor, so they're writers. So like the myriad of people that were invited, they're all like kind of press sort of people, I guess, and we all know how artists can feel about the press sometimes, especially when it comes to criticism of both the constructive and unnecessary variety. And I believe that that's the commentary this movie was really going for. It just misses the mark massively. But there's a puppet show with like rats and whatever, and it's about, well, I'm not going to spoil, but it's about a famous like jazz blues singer from periods long gone. The name starts with Billy. But anyway, so that was maybe the most creative and interesting thing in the entire movie, and I feel like encapsulated what they were trying to say at the end of the day about people being unnecessarily like vicious in their assessments, and they don't understand the arduousness of the creation process. But everything else going down, from the Jim Jones ripoff stuff to, I mean, so many other flicks that I have seen recently that entail culty stuff. It had some Blink Twice vibes to it, which came out last year. That was less a cult and more like, oh, we're in this isolated place and people are disappearing, and oh, I don't know what happened to that, like that sort of crap. I mean, and this is all in the trailers of these respective films, so it's not like I'm giving too much away. So it just it felt very tired, very bland, very boring. I was really giving her best, but yet once again, when it veers into the, like, it tries to be a lot more serious, especially in the back half, and yet also there's an ending to an ending to an ending. Like, the ending goes on quite long and makes me wonder if it was tested and then they decided to add in some, reshoots, additional photography, whatever, rework it, and leave it open to being something else. I mean, I don't know. This film was just, despite very obviously having a budget behind it for this first-time filmmaker, it did not do it for me. I was massively disappointed with this, because I went in with an open mind. But I guess when it initially screened, I can't remember if it was South by Southwest or one of the other high-profile festivals earlier this year, there was initial buzz, but then when more critics started seeing it, then it started to taper off. But, I went in with an open mind, as I always do, because anybody who watches this channel, man, knows that I always try to see as much good in a film as possible, as opposed to just trashing on it. The music was interesting, okay? Most notably the song that they play where it's making like sex and drug references, and it's a fucking upbeat dance track of sorts. I thought it was pretty good, and then even when the listening party is going down and it's John Malkovich's character is like trying to be edgy and like dance up on all of his male and female, guests and whatnot, and be all sexual, and they're like super into it and everything. Even then, like that song, and there's a couple sad songs, that are more introspective. So those tracks were pretty good, but they didn't feel worthy in my estimation as a former music critic myself for many years at Playtime and with the Phoenix New Times and stuff. Like, it didn't feel to the degree of grandiosity and reverence that this, and that's where it's really tough when you're gonna position a character in a film, a fictional character no less, whose music is supposed to be so transcendent and incredible, and the music isn't just like mind-blowing. It's one of the dangers of that form of storytelling. When you make it the be-all end-all, it's really I don't know. It's the burden of expectation, as I all too often like to say in this channel, and I don't think, though, that was the issue with this movie. This was just borrowing from too many things, too many cliches, as I mentioned earlier, and despite I'm not going to go as far as to say inspired performance from Io, but, she's giving it her all, and I like her a lot, so, yeah. It's not an epic fail, but it is definitely a big-time miss for a setup that I think could have veered into much more interesting territory, but it doesn't. It's just very run-of-the-mill and regrettably forgettable as well. So that's my thoughts on Opus, everybody. Still in theaters right now, the latest from A24. I've been Jaime and Fuego, and you can find more on all social media sectors: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Myself and Cecil are going to be covering the International Horror Sci-Fi Film Festival coming up. That is going from March 26th, I believe, or March 28th through April 6th. So if you're in the Phoenix area, have any inclination to check it out, it's going over 2 weekends, and the actual week in between all those wondrous days, find your new favorite movie, all that jazz. This is definitely not one of mine, no. So I've been Fuego, y'all have been Rat Status, everybody. Like, share, subscribe to the video if you have seen this and you liked it and you think I'm totally bogus ass, leave some thoughts in the comments below. But until next time, Fright fans, remember, stay scared.